of PauseCast. It's Thursday, October 19th, 2017. I am Jessica Alouette, and I use she, her pronouns.
And I'm Mark Hanna, I use he, him. Welcome.
Mark, it has been a week, huh?
A whole week, imagine that. Yeah.
We are also, we're just coming off the news that New Zealand has got a government now. We had an election recently, and the government is going to be a Labour-led coalition, which they're kind of like, I would describe them as center-left.
And they're to the left of the other major party.
Yes, but they're still very much, I would say, in the center wing of politics. So they're the center-left party, and they are collaborating with the further left party, the Greens.
Well,
and
that's the ideal. I'm looking forward to that part, but
yes,
do we want? We probably don't want to get into the details of it.
We're not going to get into the details. I'm just saying, and the far right as well. So if we're back smack dab in the center of everything. Centrism is a nightmare that we're all living. Welcome to PauseCast. It's a show about video games and not about politics.
It's about politics and video games, though.
Well, yeah, I was about to, I need to correct myself there. It absolutely is about politics, because politics are everywhere. And it's good, in fact, that they are everywhere. We're not a local politics podcast.
No.
Where did we begin? Oh, yeah, that's right. We have a format for the show.
Yeah, so what, over the last week, have you been playing?
I have, this week, been playing...
Oh no, Gizmo, get off the keyboard.
We're playing Keep Your Cat Off the Keyboard Simulator.
Yeah, it's okay, it's still recording. If you hear a cat licking itself at any point, it's because Gizmo's on my desk.
Okay. Wow. Professionalism.
It's alright, he's pretty quiet.
Okay.
He's standing to the side.
If the cat starts purring, I may have to ask you to move the cat.
She looks really good. I'm just gonna...
Unbelievable.
Look up here. No, he's looking down. Fidget spinner. Hey. Sorry to everyone who's listening. This is probably not...
This is gonna be, this is an outtake reel, is what this is.
Oh yeah, okay. I've got a shot of the recording setup with Gizmo staring at the fidget spinner on my desk.
Oh, yes. Excellent.
Okay, cool. Sorry about that.
I regularly forget about the fidget spinner that you have.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know why I keep forgetting about it. I did.
Frankly, its primary purpose is a Gizmo summoning device, because I start spinning it and he hears the noise and he jumps up on the desk. And from the desk, he'll often come down onto my lap, so...
This whole thing is an outtake reel. Unbelievable.
Anyway.
We're off to a great start. Do you want to ask me that question again, please?
Yeah. So, over this past week, what have you been playing?
I have been playing a handful of things. I've been playing a lot of PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. I've been playing a little bit more Grim Dawn. I've warmed up on that quite a bit, actually. Nice. I've also done something that I have never done in any action RPG before, and that is turn off the display of common items.
Yeah?
Yeah. It's gotten... I'm at that point where, all the common items are worth, 2 iron bits. That's the currency that's used in the world of Grim Dawn.
Mm-hmm. Rather
than, gold, it's just oh yeah, we need stuff that's of value.
So the point where it's not even worth scrapping off your boot?
Yeah, it's to the point where it's oh yeah, that gets me 2 bits, where any magic item, which is the next tier, any magic item is going to get me several hundred. Right. So it's just the inventory space is not worth keeping these things, because Grim Dawn's inventory system, it all works... how familiar are you with how Resident Evil 7 or Deus Ex Human Revolution do their inventories?
Not at all.
Okay, so you have a grid set up, basically.
Okay.
And each item in it takes up, a certain amount of spaces, depending on what kind of item it is.
This sounds like how Diablo 2 and 3 have handled their inventory systems as well.
Diablo 3 does this as well. I only thought D2 does this. Like,
Diablo 2 had
makes,
a lot of more different shapes than Diablo 3 has, but it
that
still
makes
does it.
sense because Grim Dawn is very much it's very much inspired by Diablo 2 in tone and like what it's aiming to kind of the experience is kind of aiming to duplicate is very much Diablo 2.
Right.
And so it has a very similar inventory system then.
Actually, I liked the Diablo 2 inventory system. I can imagine
Oh no,
some people would find
it's
it
super
gets
cool.
bogged down.
I really like it.
Yeah.
But I don't like the fact that my common items, which are worth so little, take up so much of my inventory space. So I have booted them off of displaying on my screen.
So has it got that granular HUD options then that you can say, don't display items of this rarity?
Yep.
Nice.
It's just there's like a little filter in your hotbar that's just like, hey, what kind of rarity do you want to filter to? And it'll go from like magic plus to all of the tiers that you can see. Mm-hmm. So you could eventually just tell it to stop showing you anything but legendary gear.
Nice.
Because nothing else is then worth your time.
I like a good customizable interface.
Yeah, it's really nice. I guess my main beef with Grim Dawn's UI is maybe a little too small.
Okay.
But I can live with that. I have also, let's see, a little bit more Torchlight. And something that's going to maybe surprise frequent listeners of this podcast. And it's that I have been playing Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor, a game which I did not like the first time I played it.
Now, if you have listened for long enough, you'll also know that this is just an ongoing joke where Jess says she doesn't like it. There was one time where she confessed that all those other times were a joke, and she broke character and told the truth that one time that is just her favourite game. But go on, sorry, I just wanted to give context in case they hadn't listened to it.
I was forced to say that, but at gunpoint by my patrons.
But you would say that, wouldn't you? To keep the joke going.
No.
You're that dedicated.
Mm.
So how was your favourite game?
Listen. Here's what's going to surprise, I think, a lot of people about Mordor. Not Mordor, I want to say that. I'm not playing Shadow of War. That's Mark's game. Middle-earth was not a game I enjoyed enough to be excited about picking up the sequel immediately.
Especially when it's over $100.
Oof.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can get it for 60, but the point being, it wasn't a game I would have picked up, but I did just pick up Mordor again because it's got that Nemesis system.
Mm-hmm.
And turns out that there are a few things that I maybe unjustly went hard on that game for.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So you've had a better experience this time around?
I have. I've been able to get the procedural generation working a little bit better, and I've started to get, interesting encounters. I've had instances where one orc killed me multiple times. I've had instances where I killed an orc multiple times, and they just kept coming back.
Yeah.
Eventually to the point where, they were saying, oh, this orc's jaws hurt because they, experience so much pain and they are always after you. It's like, oh god. So definitely have had a better experience with the procedural generation this time around in Mordor. The sound design, not as bad as I remembered.
Well, that's good.
Honestly, it's very crunchy once you start getting into the executions and stuff. Just straight combat still feels a little flat to me.
In Shadow of Mordor, you get a lot more executions a lot faster once you've got the higher skills as well.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot more options for that in Shadow of War. Mordor has about 3 kind of stock executions, I guess, where Shadow of War has a trillion more. I've seen it also indicates how you killed certain orcs. So it'll say like, this orc was cleft in twain.
Yeah, there's cleaved and burned and brutalized, I think there's one. Yeah.
Yeah,
beheaded.
that's like from Stealth, I think, wouldn't it be?
Yeah, I think it might also apply if you've got there's a new brutal execution now where you'll often like cut off their arm as well or something.
Okay.
It's kind of, if you really want to keep them down, try that.
Yeah. That game is interesting. I didn't hate it as much, like, coming back to it, I didn't hate it quite as much. It's still, like, definitely 100% not my favorite game. And I guess, ultimately, it's just, I've ended up a lot more neutral on it, and I've gone to play it a couple times of my own volition.
Well, I'm glad it treated you better when you came back to it, because like I mentioned when I tried going back to it a while ago, it felt very monotonous going back with a high-level character, having played a bunch of that game. Whereas Shadow of War had enough new options to feel fresh, even though I'd just gone back and felt that. So I'm glad that you haven't had that same experience when you returned to it.
Yeah. I'm going to talk about this game in particular a little bit later, but I also played Persona 4 this week and Fire Emblem Fates.
Cool. So Persona 4, that's the one before the latest one.
That's correct.
Okay, and you hadn't played that one before?
I have not played that one before. We're going to talk about Persona 4 in a little bit.
Yep.
Let's first get to you. What have you been playing this week?
So I have done my typical play only one game thing, and I've been playing more Shadow of War. Not as much as I'd expected to. When I get a new game, I normally binge on it a fair bit. I've played a couple of evenings since the last episode, but I've done a lot of other like D&D prep stuff during the evenings because I'm between arcs in my campaign at the moment, so it's kind of time to build more things. But no, it's still been treating me good. I haven't progressed much further in the story because, there's no real incentive to now that I've unlocked all the areas and stuff. So I've just been continuing hacking up orcs and making friends. But what I'm going to talk about is spoilers for Shadow of War. Do you mind them?
I don't, because I'm not likely to play it, and I've heard that the story is the worst part of that game. It's the worst part of Shadow of Mordor.
It gets dark. And you know how I had said all this time that I was looking forward to hanging out with Bruce? So it turns out he breaks up with you in a really nasty way, and then you go back and take an even nastier revenge on him, and I felt so horrible through the whole thing. It's really, that was...
Yeah,
I still feel bad. I mentioned that last time, didn't I? I still feel bad.
We've talked a little bit about how you are not the good guy in these games.
Not at all. But yeah, I still maybe it's because I encountered him just this evening before we were recording and was reminded again, because he sticks around basically as a reminder of what you did, and it's supposed to be he's a reminder to other orcs of what you can do, but he just makes me feel like crap for what I did every time I run into him. It's kind of sad.
That feels like a direct kind of like stab in the back from Warner Brothers too. Like,
right?
There's no way you weren't intended to have this sort of reaction, because they build him like in the lead up to this game as like, oh,
your
look,
friend.
It's Bruce, the friendly orc, your friend.
Yeah.
Now kill your friend.
Well, no, that's the thing. The quest where you take your revenge on him is called Worse Than Death. Yeah.
Hey, that's a hard pass for me, actually. No, thank you.
So he sticks around after that and shows up and you get a reminder of what you did. So that's
cool. That's like a good thing in this video game, definitely.
Yeah.
Shall we talk about more good things in video games? Because I have Persona 4 to talk about.
Oh, let's get into it.
Pour me a drink. It's just LMP, but I'm pouring me a drink. Hi. Persona 4 sucks ass.
And why is that?
It doesn't actually. Here's the thing. It's like, it's got smart writing. It has good design. But it is like, I have run into a particularly troubling section of Persona 4, shall we say. In Persona 4, there's this character called Naoto Shiragane, and Naoto is a young detective boy. He's very good, actually, and I like him a whole lot.
Is he like Magnus from the Adventure Zone?
He's kind of like Magnet. No, you're thinking Angus, not Magnus.
Sorry,
but yes,
am. I'm thinking Angus.
He's kind of like Angus from the Adventure Zone, except he like actually works with the police, and he's working on this murder case that has been plaguing the town that you are living in.
Okay.
And he's cracked part of it, but he suspects the killer's still out there. So he baits the killer into taking him.
That's never a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
The way that things work in Persona 4, when people are kidnapped by this serial killer, they are thrown into the an alternate world inside the television. And in this world, it is revealed your kind of like true desires and your true self. And the game is ultimately about like when you choose to deny yourself, you have this like dark, fucked up version of yourself that comes out. Your shadow.
Okay.
Is what the game calls it. So Naoto's storyline revolves around... Naoto has a secret laboratory as his kind of constructed reality surrounding this. And in his opening sequence, he talks about a body alteration procedure that he's going to undergo live on television. Is the setup for this. So you go into the dungeon, you complete the dungeon. It's a very cool and interesting dungeon that has some interesting design elements in it. It's the first that actually has some sort of like gating that you need to go back a couple of floors to then get a specific item and then come back down and then you can unlock that door.
Okay.
So it's got some cool variations in the dungeon. When you reach the boss, in the confrontation with his darkest self, and I want to... I remember the quote. One of the things that this alternate, like, darker self says is, how can you be your ideal man when you were never male to begin with?
Oh no, I can see where this is going.
Yeah, so... In this sequence, Naoto is like forcibly outed in front of your entire squad as being a trans dude. You fight his shadow self because Naoto denies his self. And you beat the boss. And then some bad shit starts to happen because everybody's like, oh, Naoto is actually a girl. It's this whole thing. And they immediately switch to using she, her pronouns for him. And, like, there's even some stuff in the sequence that also bothered me because it's, like, addressing him immediately out of character when it was, like, stuff that he talked about in no uncertain terms inside this dungeon. Like, he also deals with, like, being infantilized by the police because they're like, oh yeah, you're just a child. And he also worries about, like, the police force using his identity against him because if they had one sort of concrete piece of evidence to deny, like, to not work with him, then they would totally just take it. And knowing that he was trans would then, fuck that up. Or, as he puts it, knowing that Naoto was a girl, quote unquote.
What was the writer even thinking?
Here, like, the thing about this is, like, this is a Japanese game from many, many years ago at this point. Like, I think Persona 4's original launch date would have been, like, early 2010, even earlier, 2009, 2008. It was, like, PS2 era.
Okay, I mean, that's something, but I'm always hesitant to try to excuse stuff because of the era it's in, you know?
I know
I'm
that's
not what you're trying to do.
Yeah, not excusing this. It's shitty. It sucks. Like the immediate shift to just throwing away everything that was known about this character and just like starting to use she and starting to call Naoto Missy and like a whole like it's so gross. And it has me really irritated playing this game.
I'm not surprised.
There is a really great article that I talked about this on Twitter earlier this week, and there's a really great article that I linked in association with that, which was called Denial of the Self, and it is by, and I'm going to pull this author really quickly. Just give me a moment while I pull the tweets that I made. Denial of the Self by Carolyn Pettit. It was published on GameSpot, and it talks about queer characters in Persona 4. There's also one of the dungeons also revolves around, like, a guy who's dealing with, like, feelings of attraction to men. And that is, like, it's a whole thing that is also poorly addressed by this game. I am going to read the quote that I pulled from this article that I thought was very good. Persona 4 is full of wasted opportunities, and ultimately its handling of Kanji and Naoto is more than just a disappointing failure to engage with queer characters and queer issues. By introducing the idea that Kanji is gay and that Naoto is transgender, and then backing away from embracing those characterizations, Persona 4 represents a betrayal of its central theme about people learning to accept themselves and each other for who they are, and sends the message that sexual orientations and gender identities are too scary to accept. That's a really good pull quote from a really good article. I will link that in the show notes, as well as in Twitch chat for anybody who's watching us live. That article is really great. It also brought up this point of like introducing a plot hole, essentially. Because if those were true selves, Naoto actually doesn't end up embracing his true self and talking about like embracing this these feelings that he's had.
So once it's like, defeated, he continues on being like, no, I'm a boy, because he is, and it wasn't actually his true self?
No. That's the true characterization of himself was as a boy, and the bodily alterations procedure was to transition into being a dude. Because that would then cause him to fit this ideal image of his self. But instead, as you proceed into the game's social links, from what I understand, you actually your player character actually actively tries to convince Naoto to not embrace that and to just completely deny the self. There are plot holes that are introduced for both Kanji and for Naoto because none of these things are actually then none of these true selves are actually embraced, where the true selves of every other character prior are embraced, and they make peace with them. So the two queer characters are then just they're outliers and plot holes in how this game even works.
So does the game essentially set up two queer characters and then give them their true selves, which are not queer, essentially? Is that the idea?
No,
it's just denying
the
that?
true selves. The true selves are queer.
Okay. Oh, and they back away, and the characters back away from that.
Correct.
Oh, sorry, I had it backwards.
Yes.
I mean, that's just
it's worse.
Yeah.
Because it is a denial of the self, and Persona 4's central thing is when you deny yourself, you create a fucked up version of yourself. You create something that is broken and bad.
But setting up this mechanic and then saying, but it's more important than this thing about the true self is that, no, You mustn't be okay with people being queer. That's more important, right? That's
Yep.
how it sets it up.
Yep, that's basically how that sets it up.
Fuck that.
Fuck that. And it's like it's unavoidable in this game too. These are required dungeons, and like these characters are part of your team. So like all of this stuff is completely unavoidable. In Persona 5, it like does better about queer characters basically by omission, by not choosing to include them.
Right.
Because when there is a queer character, they're as a side thing for a couple of minutes, and it's played for laughs. Like, it's not good.
But it's arguably less harmful, at least.
It's arguably less harmful, at least, because you're not dealing with the kind of active homophobia and active transphobia that is present in how Persona 4 is written.
Yeah.
It's disappointing, and it really, really frustrated me, like, earlier this week.
Yeah.
I described it at that point as well as, like, death by 1,000 cuts, because each time that, like, all of these characters were suddenly using, like, she, her pronouns to address Naoto, who had up until that point referred to himself as he, him, and in fact in the original translation of the game continues to refer to himself as he, him. Like, it's death by 1,000 cuts. Every single instance of she and her, it's just like cut. And eventually I'm going to bleed out. And I worry that that'll be what happens with Persona 4. I will eventually just bleed out, and my desire to play that game will be gone.
Yeah, be understandable.
Because it'll just become too hard for me to deal with, and I will say, nope, fuck that.
Do you know how close you are to the end of it?
Well, I have my whole team assembled now.
Okay.
So I don't think I'm far away from the ending. I'm definitely not going to be pursuing the social link stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, you know what? I might be at the 2/3 to halfway point.
Right.
I'm not sure how all of this is going to be structured from now on, but we shall see. And we'll see if it remains like a bearable thing for me to play. The scenes I'm in right now are just a nightmare.
Yeah, a bit.
Ugh. I'm tempted to skip them because they clearly add nothing of value. But, woof, it's rough.
Is it the only game you've run into that's treated it this badly?
Yes! This is the first game that I've run into that it's treated it quite this badly. I
suppose part of that is probably just because it doesn't come up often.
Yeah, like, it doesn't come up often, and I can name I could name the, like, games that I know of that have canonically trans characters, like, easily, and I can count them on one hand. Assassin's Creed Syndicate, Dragon Age Inquisition.
Yeah, I was thinking of that one.
Read-only Memories. I don't know what comes after that.
Yeah, when I try to think of the times that I've seen trans people represented in media, I think of two movies that I watched as kids. Probably honestly the first time I was exposed to the idea, and they were both just transphobic jokes. There's one in Crocodile Dundee where there is a scene where he just sexually assaults a trans woman as a joke in a bar, and it's, thinking back on it, horrific. And there's Mrs. Doubtfire, which I probably don't need to get into, but there's some
We don't need to get into Mrs. Doubtfire.
But, like, it's just not good. And, I mean, it should be getting better, but thinking of that stuff, you know, they're kids' movies. I don't know where I'm going with it. It's just, it was shit. I hope it's getting better. And I'm glad at least that Persona 4, with all this, is several years old.
Quantum Dot in the chat points out that Catherine, another Atlas game, also includes a trans character, but arguably handles it even worse. I've heard mixed things about the handling of trans characters in Catherine. So I'm curious to check that out at some point.
Okay.
That Baldur's Gate DLC which is Baldur's Gate Siege of Dragonspear, which was released last year.
We talked about that ages ago, didn't we? I think.
Yeah, we did. Because it was new content for a game that was 20 years old.
That's
but yeah,
right,
it included a trans character. That's right. I also just remember another case, arguably, and that is the original Nier for the PS3.
Yeah.
Which includes a character that is canonically intersex. Not quite the same, I should know. But she's handled in, shall we say, questionable ways.
Right.
She has the most revealing outfit, for example, of your entire kind of crew. On the other token, she's also just allowed to kind of like exist and be part of the world.
Mm.
So, anyway, that's Persona 4 done. That's like it was like a whole huge thing. I'm sorry that you didn't really get a chance to talk a lot during that. Oh.
Yeah. I've actually just been thinking from that discussion, the series of books that I've been reading this year includes some queer characters, which I haven't really had much in books I've read before, honestly. I mean, generic fantasy often just doesn't deal with that stuff. But no, it's in these books, all that's been exposed so far is a bunch of men who are gay or bi. It's not always specified, really. But it's really nice. It's been handled quite well in the more recent books I've been reading. It runs into problems in some of the other books just because, hey, some of the people in this world aren't okay with that, and it kind of deals with that. And it's not in a completely terrible way. It's two of the main characters. One of them's gay, and it comes up pretty late on. And they've known each other for so long, and the other one doesn't get it, and they have a fight. And then it's about how they resolve that, which is interesting, something to come up in a fantasy adventure book. And I kind of appreciate it.
When you mention that as well, that also reminds me of just like how cool Dragon Age was in that, oh yeah, like there are tons of queer characters in these games.
BioWare's been pretty good with that, right?
Of varying quality, shall we say.
Yeah.
But there are queer characters in Dragon Age, and it is a like fantasy setting, and like you're right. Like sexuality and like gender identity is not something that is often kind of addressed at all in fantasy.
Hell, just gender in general. In fantasy, it's like, yeah, there's 3 women. That's it. That's
Sign
like
our petition to make Quandor the dragon a male.
I was just thinking of that, yeah.
Sorry, Brooklyn Nine-Nine reference, people.
It's a very good joke in there.
Yeah, there is a very good joke. We already have 2 women characters, so we don't need a third.
Yeah.
Let's see. So we do have some questions from the chat. Quantum Dot asks, visceral disillusion thoughts? For if you don't know, EA Studio Visceral, who did the Dead Space games and did a handful of other games before they became Visceral, and they were just EA Redmond Shores, has been dissolved as of yesterday, and their Star Wars game that they were working on, which was being headed up by Amy Hennig, I think that's her name, who had done work on Uncharted 4. And a lot of people kind of thought that was going to be like a Star Wars Uncharted. Do you have any kind of thoughts on that?
I mean, you just answered a bunch of questions I had, because I'd seen headlines around Visceral going down, but
yeah,
you are so much better than me at knowing, this studio did this game, that studio did that game, and I'm like, yes, these 3 games, I know who developed that without Googling it. It's always kind of sad when this stuff happens, but I don't know if I've got really any insight into it.
From what I understand, they're being folded into EA proper.
Okay.
As are like all the assets that they were working on for the upcoming Star Wars game is being kind of just folded in to being folded into EA proper, and the project is being folded into EA proper. There's some speculation it's going to end up as a Destiny kind of game. because it was originally a really focused like single player game.
Mm-hmm.
And EA is suddenly convinced that there's no market for single player games. Meanwhile, the Open Critic like top 10 for this year, like all of them are single player games. So I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, EA.
My favorite game is single player games, like every time.
Raylix808 in the chat says, opinions, thoughts, and speculations about the upcoming desert map in PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds.
I asked you about this. I can't remember if it was on or off the show about if they were going to have new content or another map, because it's been the one map for ages, right?
Yeah. It has been the one map for ages, and now we're getting a second one. That's pretty cool. It's going to be set in the desert. It's loosely inspired by Mexico, which is kind of interesting. I don't know. I don't really have anything to kind of contribute to that. Oh, sorry, there are two upcoming maps. There's like a desert one and one set in a snowy region. That's kind of cool. I hope that one's like a lot more open and has a lot more verticality to it, like a lot of mountains and stuff you have to climb.
Are there any mechanics for that sort of climbing stuff in the game?
Vaulting is coming very soon. It's expected to be in kind of end of November, early December.
Like over fences and stuff, or
yeah. Okay. So I think that would make that map quite a bit more viable.
That Diablo-esque game you've been playing. Sorry, I've forgotten its name just for the moment.
Grim Dawn.
Does that have set maps, or does it generate its maps the way Diablo is done?
I could not tell you.
Okay. Fair enough.
I know that Torchlight randomly generates the main maps.
Yeah, I think it's quite common. I think Diablo 1 didn't. I might be wrong about that, but Diablo 2 and 3 definitely have. And it's from a tile set and stuff, so things are roughly the same, but not this room and that room and that room. The layout changes while sort of trying to keep its essence.
Did you hear about what Diablo 1 originally was going to be? This was like from a presentation ages ago, and I swear I've told you about this.
Doesn't ring a bell. Remind me?
Diablo 1 was originally going to be more like XCOM, and it was built on the same kind of engine and stuff, and then it was like gradually modified, and then by mistake the speed was ratcheted up, so it was like in real time, and they were like, oh, we love this.
Oh, wow.
Oh, this is great. Let's leave this.
I either didn't know that or I'd forgotten that. That's quite funny.
Yeah, it was kind of like Diablo's an accidental creation. How cool is that? I'm going to look up Grim Dawn and see if there is...
Because, I mean, XCOM 2 it has been really good at that. XCOM 1 had static maps, so, once you'd played a bunch of it, you'd be like, oh, it's this map. I know where everything is. Whereas XCOM 2 has started pulling together things like chunks that it'll use to build a map, which means, you might say, oh, it's this sort of map, but you don't immediately know what its exact layout is. You'll recognize this chunk and that chunk and that chunk, but they'll be fitted together in different ways. It would be interesting if, I think we've talked about this before, about how having a static map in PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds changes your strategy because you can rely on where things are. It'd be interesting if they had perhaps a mode where it would do that sort of, the map isn't always the same. But I also imagine it would be a lot of work for a game that's been made with static maps in mind.
Grim Dawn does in fact have static maps.
Oh, interesting.
But what they do is they shuffle where things are blocked on the map sometimes.
Yeah. Monster Hunter does that as well, actually.
Yeah, it'll block certain routes and stuff.
Yeah, Monster Hunter, some missions, they'll be like, this exit from this region has got a huge boulder in the way. Or that might change throughout the mission. Yeah,
and there's a few things that are kind of generated differently. There's various dungeons and stuff that can be moved around a little bit.
Right. So like the entrance in a different place kind of thing?
Yeah, that kind of thing. So it is not randomly generated, but it's got some more random elements. That's cool. that game is really interesting too. Now, like I have my second specialization.
So how does that work?
So when you start, you pick one specialization, and you get like a certain amount of points that you can put into that specialization.
Is that like a class?
And its skills. Yes.
Okay.
It is a class, but then you can choose at level 10. You can choose a second class to go with it, and you can use skills from both classes.
Oh, cool.
In order to unlock like higher tiers of those classes, you need to put points into that class's mastery.
Is that like skill points?
It is like it consumes your skill points, and then at certain tiers you'll unlock the next tier of abilities.
Right.
So like you the base tier is 1, and then there's like 5, 10, 15, 20, etc. Mm-hmm. And so you have to invest your skill points that you earned into those masteries to then unlock the later skills.
So is that you put it in the mastery instead of spending it on a skill?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. So you have to decide, do I want to get closer to the higher skills or get a new skill now?
Yeah, or buff my existing stuff. Like you can some of the skills can be increased in level 12 times.
It's like the marshmallow test in a game.
The what, sorry?
The marshmallow test on kids.
Okay.
You ask them,
Explain immediately.
Do you want one marshmallow now? I'll put it in front of you. Or if you wait 10 minutes and don't eat it, I'll give you 2 marshmallows.
Ah, okay. I don't know that it's quite the same.
No, you don't get more in total at the end, but it's like, do I want to spend on the points now, or do I want to get closer to better stuff? But you've played it, so you've got a better handle on the feel of it.
Yeah, it feels very good. I've gotten a little bit more used to it, and there's definitely more crowd controlling stuff happening. Mm-hmm.
Actually, I saw, didn't you tweeted a GIF that you'd taken of it, where you were just standing there and enemies were killing themselves on you. Have you buffed up your thorns or something?
So, you can get... This is also another kind of interesting facet of this game. You can get components that drop from enemies.
Okay.
They're very rare. And it takes 3 components to make something that you can actually equip on any piece of armor or weapon that you use.
So, like, they go in slots or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically. Mm-hmm. Except everything always has a slot.
Oh, okay.
You can make as many components as you want, and you can just slip stuff on there, no problem. Mm-hmm. Some of them actually unlock like new skills. So if you have that item equipped, you will have access to an entirely new skill.
That's cool.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
The particular one I was using in that video was I had one that gave 10% poison damage as revenge, essentially for any damage I took, and because I was out healing them already, that meant that
basically
I could not be killed.
Yeah.
I've talked about the health system in that game too, right? Like you take damage. You take damage and then you have a pool that it pulls from to restore you to full health.
Oh, so the pool empties out.
Yeah, and then you have to find meals in the world to restore that pool.
Okay, that's interesting. I don't know if I've seen a game that does it quite that way before.
It's kind of cool. Yeah, that's Grim Dawn.
Cool.
You want to talk about Shadow of War a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, it's continued to be more of the same, basically, which is mostly pretty good. Except, the darker side of it is...
It's showing itself more and more?
I guess. So there's this system called shaming, where the intent of it is,
Sorry, let me interrupt for a joke.
Okay.
The system called shaming is twitter.com. Continue.
Okay. Its purpose is supposedly, this orc is too high level for me to recruit. I will shame them and it will decrease their level. Just fine.
Okay.
One of the things that can happen when you shame an orc is it pops up down the bottom and it says deranged. And then they will become fixated on something. So I had one guy who showed up. I can't remember if I mentioned this last week or not. Maybe it was off the show. One of the big troll guys came up and he was something or other pain lover and he had big scars all over him. And when he showed up, he was looking forward to the fight and talking about how much I had to hurt him. And I was thinking, okay, cool, this will be fun. He was too powerful for me to recruit, so I shamed him. And now all he says is, I can't feel it. I can't feel. Because we've taken that away from him. And that stuff's kind of interesting. But also, sometimes when that triggers, they don't have anything to fix it on based on whatever they were prior. And honestly, the noises they make remind me of school kids mocking disabled people, and that just makes me feel real icky. So that is something I've been trying to avoid, but it's in there. But for the most part, the orcs that show up are fun. But, once you see that, it's in your back of your mind while you're playing the game, and kind of like, that's not great.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of not great stuff in Shadow of War that the more you talk about some of the stuff, the more I'm convinced that I just want to skip it because I already have too much bullshit in my life and I don't need more.
Yeah, I mean, you do get the impression, or at least I did, that with this mission I talked about with Bruce, it's meant to make the player feel uncomfortable and realize, oh shit, we're the baddies. But I don't know, it's a game that I like playing casually, and I don't like games I play casually to make me feel uncomfortable, I guess. There is a good place for making players feel uncomfortable in a game when you're trying to make a point. That can work really well, right? But
the example that my mind immediately jumps to is Spec Ops: The Line and the white phosphorus scene. Don't look that up if you're sensitive to gore and graphic violence.
Right, I'll take your word for it then.
Bad.
But it makes a point, right?
It makes a point.
Yeah.
It makes you deeply, deeply fucking uncomfortable, but it makes a point.
I think... So, yeah, there's definitely a place for that sort of stuff. I just don't think Shadow of War is a good place for it, because it's a sandbox. It's a game that people are going to play casually because of that. Sandboxes are games that you will open up to mess around in for a bit.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
I don't know. I think that has missed the mark a bit for me, and I'm not happy with the ableism I've seen in some of those shaming events that you can run into.
Quantum Dot actually raises a good point that I'll get into. So Quantum Dot in the chat says, the other thing about Shadow of War is maybe it's meant to make you feel uncomfortable, but also it focuses on making the player feel extremely powerful, which kind of doesn't work well together. You can't have your power fantasy cake and eat it too. I
mean, I can see that, but they might be trying to lean into the whole Tolkien thing of, hey, your power comes from this ring, which is also kind of an evil thing. And I know in the canon of Shadow of War, this is the one ring that was made without Sauron's influence, but it was influenced by the Wraith Celebrimbor, right? I remembered it right?
Yes, you did.
Who, it turns out, is a massive dick. So it's influenced by that, so I don't know. It's kind of you're drawing on their power.
Elf ghost.
Yeah, maybe it's drawing on that, but it definitely clashes, for sure. It sort of pokes a needle in the balloon of the power fantasy a bit. Yeah. But it might be trying to make that point that, hey, you're playing with someone else's power and they're not cool. But, yeah, when you're playing a game casually, don't pop my bubble, dude.
Yeah, You know what? It's time to bring back a term that I know and that I love. It's ludonarrative dissonance. Let's bring that term back. It's time again to talk about ludonarrative dissonance.
Okay, I'm ready.
The ludonarrative dissonance, if you are not familiar with that term, is a dissonance between the story that a game is telling and the mechanics that back the game up. Arguably, the transphobia and homophobia in Persona 4 is ludonarrative dissonance, because the way that it does that stuff is at odds with the mechanics of the story. Actually, that doesn't even just be narrative dissonance. That's not it's not game mechanics being at odds. It's the story itself being at odds with its internal consistency. where like some of the stuff in Shadow of War, where it's trying to make you maybe feel uncomfortable and also make you feel powerful, that is ludonarrative dissonance in its kind of purest form. It is giving you that power fantasy cake, and you eat it too. And
just reminded me, another game that made me feel powerful and uncomfortable that didn't work for me is Far Cry 3. You got all these powers, but you were just playing an asshole, and I didn't like it.
At odds with each other as well. Like, fuck, what is it? Fuck. I forgot what it is.
What's it like?
There's another... No, I had it, and it's gone. It was a fleeting thought
Hey, buddy.
that entered my brain.
I now have Gizmo on my lap.
The cat has invaded our podcast again, everyone.
Well, he was standing between me and the microphone before, so I was like, I hope you move before I have to talk, because I don't want it to pick you up. Anyway, sorry. Quick cat update.
Quantum Dot agrees with your assessment of the Far Cry series as well. Like, it's trying to... Far Cry 3, as a specific example, is very good. Far Cry 4... maybe a little bit less.
It wasn't the same sort of discomfort.
I feel like it was definitely less like surface level than Far Cry 3 was. Like Far Cry 3 was very surface level dissonant. And also just not at all internally consistent with like how you, the one dude, just is going to clean up everything that these folks have been fighting for years. The natives to this island have been fighting for years. Like it's gross white savior shit. It's not internally consistent. It's bad. That game is not good in terms of its story. Yeah, I've completely lost the plot on my example.
Sorry.
That's fine. Oh, no, you know what? No, I remember. I got it. It's back in my head. Spec Ops The Line. Spec Ops The Line is actually, is also, ludonarratively dissonant because it is, while trying to actively deconstruct what the military game is and while making you deeply uncomfortable, it also gives you, oh, yeah, it's a generic shooter and it controls very well and the shooting is good. Have fun. It gives you both of these things, and that's maybe not good.
Do you think it would be better if it didn't handle as well, or if you felt more vulnerable while playing?
I don't know how you would handle that well. Maybe the model to go for would be this war of mine.
Yeah.
Take it from rather the perspective of a soldier, the perspective of a civilian.
Though we're talking a very differently designed game here.
Oh, absolutely. And we're also talking about completely different narratives in the end, because the story of Spec Ops The Line ultimately ends up being about, dealing with the trauma of the things that you have done. Because, yeah, it revolves around, I guess, post-traumatic stress disorder from the mistakes that you made over the course of the game and, things that you were ordered to do that were not morally in line with you, the character.
Mm-hmm.
And then it creates a clash and ultimately ends in some interesting ways. There's a few different endings that you can get depending on the stuff that you did, I believe.
Right.
Quantum Dot in the chat points out as well, another game that seeks to tell stories from the perspective of civilians is Valiant Hearts, and it may or tell war stories. From the perspective of civilians is Valiant Hearts, but it may or may not have been successful.
Okay, that's not a game I've encountered.
It's one I've heard really good things about, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. Alright. That's enough for the. I think that's enough for the ludonarrative dissonance hour.
Should we find a high note to finish on?
Yeah. Do you have anything in mind?
Damn it! I think you'd twist that back on me.
I would love to end on a high note. Do you?
Well,
do you have an idea?
I'm thinking of just what are you looking forward to playing, but then I'm thinking, well, my answer is the thing that I've been complaining about a bit. But I'll ask you anyway. What are you looking forward to playing?
I'm looking forward to playing Wolfenstein 2 more by the day.
When's that coming out?
Next week.
Before or
Friday.
after the show?
After the show, so
Okay.
I'll be still excited to play it then, but like I've been thinking about it a lot recently.
Yeah. There's a few games coming up that you've been looking forward to, aren't there?
Oh,
That sounds like a yes.
I'm in hell, dude. Because I have to deal with the fact that Assassin's Creed Origins and Wolfenstein 2 are launching on the same day.
What?
Yep.
That's
so. And I have to deal with the fact that The Evil Within 2 is out and very good from what I hear. And I maybe don't need to play the first game to understand it as well as another thing that I'm hearing.
That's good.
Which has me kind of excited because despite owning the first one, it was a little bit rough when I was playing it. And I was thinking, maybe I'll go back to it and I'll like have a good time and play The Evil Within. But also, yeah. Relix points out in the chat as well, and you're going to be playing Destiny 2 with me every waking hour. If you want to buy me that PC copy, my dude, by all means, I will play that game with you.
That's out soon as well, right?
Yeah, it's like next week.
Everything's next week.
What are you looking forward to playing this week? What have you got on your... I should actually give an answer, because I gave Wolfenstein 2, which is not going to be out until after the next show. I'm looking forward to playing Grim Dawn. I'm looking forward to PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. I'm looking forward to some Dishonored 2 this week, because I'm going to finish it finally, properly. It's going to be good. Dishonored 2. And then I'm going to probably start Prey.
Nice. That's the Bethesda sort of sci-fi game that came out a little while ago, eh?
Arcane. Same studio.
Bethesda published it, didn't they? They didn't develop it.
Yes. But it's from the Dishonored people, but
cool.
Science fiction. So I'm very excited about that as well.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be playing some more Shadow of War.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually had a little bit of an inkling about maybe retouching Witcher 3 again.
Ooh.
I don't know if that will happen, because, like I said, I've got D&D prep for a new arc coming up next weekend. And I'll probably have a bunch of stuff to do with the new government now and making sure that the new ministers, when they're announced, know what I want. I've got some official information that should be released soon. That'll probably take an evening or two to analyze. But
yeah,
I might touch that again. I don't know if it'll happen the next week, but I've been having thoughts about it. Okay. It was good D&D inspiration the first time around, frankly.
Yeah,
which
maybe
was
you'll find
actually
some
before
more like
I played
Monster Hunter kind of. I guess it'll get your Monster Hunter fix in.
I don't know. I thought it might when I first played it, when I was first starting to play it, but I didn't get the same feel as I get out of Monster Hunter. I don't think. I might pick up my DS and play some more Monster Hunter, but I don't know. Generations doesn't feel like one that I'm as likely to return to as the previous ones were. I don't really know why.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's definitely Shadow of War. Maybe Witcher 3, maybe Monster Hunter. We'll see.
Here's a question.
Yeah.
Here is a question for you. Maybe I'll make this something else new that we can like add to the end of the show.
Yeah.
Do you have anything that you'd like to recommend this week? Something that people should be checking out or doing? I know I'm springing this on you real quick.
I'm going to pick something.
Okay.
It's not a game.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
But
it can be anything. Let it be anything.
The books that I've been reading this year that I mentioned, I've been really enjoying them. They're books by Robin Hobb. The first set is called the Farseer Trilogy. I've been really enjoying them a lot. I've been reading them pretty much all year. I think I'm on book 13 now.
Jeez.
Out of 16 in total.
Nice.
But yeah, they're set. They're in like there's 3 trilogies in a set of 4. I think it is.
And that is, what was that called again? The first trilogy?
The first one is called the Farseer Trilogy, Farseer. So the first book is Assassin's Apprentice. But I've been really enjoying that this year. It's been, there's enough books to keep me going pretty much the whole year, and it's been really good to me.
Nice. I am going to recommend Polygon's series Video Game Theater, mostly for the fact that Simone de Rochefort says the words, in this episode of Video Game Theater, Goofy fucking dies in the most recent episode, and that's good enough to earn my recommendation, honestly, because Goofy, beloved Disney character, does in fact die. It's terrific. I would recommend it. I wish Goofy could do anything in Kingdom Hearts. I wish Donald would also do a thing once in a while. Oh,
sorry, you just cut out for me for a moment.
I wish Donald Duck would do literally anything in Kingdom Hearts, just for once. Okay, we're going to wrap this up. Thank you very much for listening to episode 60 of PauseCast. If you liked what you heard, please consider giving us a rating or review on Apple Podcasts or your podcast platform of choice. If you would like to support the show financially, you can do so by supporting our Patreon. Our patrons get a few cool things every month, including a shout out from us in every episode. I'm also very excited to announce we have reached our first goal.
Oh shit.
Meaning we are now no longer paying hosting costs for the show out of pocket. That is amazing.
That's so cool. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much to everyone who is supporting the show. This upcoming month, I think we're gonna miss October for this, honestly, but I'm gonna commit to this. Mark, I really hope you're on board with this. We have a concept pilot kind of show in the works, and we are going to give our patrons early access to that this month. I might also do a Destiny spoiler cast with Ash, and all of that stuff will be early access for our patrons. So if you'd like to get in on that, you can do so by going to bit.ly/pausecast or patreon.com/pausecastshow. Thank you to all of our patrons, including, and I'm pulling up the list, Laminated Moth, PD, Ash Yee, Residoke, Noah Holmes, Allerdrain, and Sammy. Thank you so much for supporting this show, and thank you for getting us to our first goal with the show.
It's so exciting.
It means so much that we've gotten even this far. I absolutely wasn't sure we would ever be able to do it, to be honest, but we've done it, and I'm fucking really grateful for everything that's kind of happened around this show.
Yeah.
What else do we say here? Mark, where can people find you online?
I'm on Twitter at HonestUniverse, and I blog as well, though not about video games, at honestuniverse.com. What about you?
You can find me at bird.school, and you can find me streaming at live.bird.school or maximumgun.org.
Live.bird.school is where we stream the episodes each week as well, when we record at 8 p.m. New Zealand time on Thursdays.
That's always the URL I tweet, because I can't really, it's not really suitable for this stream to be tweeting getting.hoisted.online or maximumgun.org to send everybody to my stream. When I'm streaming PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, it is basically always maximumgun.org that I tweet, because It's good. I can't believe I got that URL. I can't. I am. It is beyond me that Maximum Fun did not snag that URL. If I'm to be completely honest, it's just one. It is one letter away on the keyboard and one letter away from their just like existing URL.
There are a lot of one-letter away URLs though.
True, but like this one's an actual word. Either way.
Yeah.
I have MaximumGun.org through some miracle.
I wonder if XKCD has got MaximumBun.org. Because they've been doing a lot of good bun comments. Jokes, not comments in their comments.
Quantum Dot in the chat says, I just got that joke about Maximum Gun. Maybe this will make it more kind of transparent. MaximumGun.org. Comedy and culture. Artist owned, listener supported.
You're so getting sued now.
This is a fair use parody. I've adjusted how it is, and it is a parody.
Oh yeah.
Fair use. Thank you to Leon for the use of our theme song, Honey Milk Island. It is off Leon's self-titled EP. You can find Leon's music at soundcloud.com/LEYAWN. That is going to do it for us this week on PauseCast. Thank you so much for listening to our 60th episode. Wow. Jesus Christ, we've been doing this a while. And we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.